Gaura Premanandi. Vivo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together, please. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Preshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost speedily destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as irrevocable facts. This morning we're reading from chapter 2 of chapter 7 of the second canto. Who can remember the name of this chapter? You're cheating. You're cheating. Scheduled incarnations with specific functions. Yes. Okay. So this is a chapter which is dedicated to this topic of avatars, and it's like a buffet of incarnations of Krishna. To the outsider, it appears that Vaishnavism is polytheistic. In other words, you worship many gods. But in fact, we understand Ete Chamsa Kalapum Sam Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. All of these amsas, all these parts of Krishna, of Godhead, are coming from Krishna. And he's the supreme personality of Godhead. That is from the first canto, one of the great verses, Mahavakyas of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I believe we're on 21 through 24 today. Two of these great avatars, Lord Ram and Dhanvantari. So let's, actually just for text, why don't we just read them together? The Lord in his incarnation of Dhanvantari very quickly cures the diseases of the ever-diseased living entities simply by his fame personified. And only because of him do the demigods achieve long lives. Thus, the personality of Godhead becomes ever glorified. He also exacted a share from the sacrifices, and it is he only who inaugurated the medical science for the knowledge of medicine in the universe. Next text. This is about Lord Ram, these next three. When the ruling administrators, who are known as the Kshatriyas, turned away from the path of the absolute truth, being desirous to suffer in hell, the Lord, in his incarnation of the sage Parsaram, uprooted these kings who appeared as the thorns on the earth. He thrice 7 times uprooted the Kshatriyas with his extremely sharp. Excuse me, I forgot 3 avatars this morning, Parsaram. I hope he doesn't come after me with his chopper. Due to his causeless mercy upon all living entities in the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his plenary extensions, appeared in the family of Maharaj Shitwaku as the Lord of his internal potency, Sita. Under the order of his father, Maharaj Dasarath, he entered the forest and lived there for considerable years with his wife and younger brother. Ravana, who is very materially powerful, with 10 heads on his shoulders, committed a great offense against him and was thus ultimately vanquished. The personality of Godhead Ramachandra being aggrieved for his distant, intimate friend Sita, glanced over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes, Marat, who wanted to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, in the way of his family members, the aquatics, like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were burnt by the heat of the angry, red-hot eyes of the Lord. 125. When Ravana was engaged in battle, the trunk of the elephant which carried the king of heaven, Indra, broke in pieces, having collided with the chest of Ravana, and the scattered broken parts illuminated all directions. Ravana therefore felt proud of his prowess and began to loiter in the midst of the fighting soldiers, thinking himself the conqueror of all directions. But his laughter, overtaken by joy, along with his very air of life, suddenly ceased with the tingling sound of the bow of Ramachandra, personality of Godhead. So, briefly, we'd like to cover Lord Ram, Parasaram, and then we'll focus on Dhanvantari this morning. Okay, so Ram is the same personality to whom we're referring when we chant Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, and that is also referring to Balaram, Krishna's brother. So Srila Prabhupada thought it was amusing that some devotees were arguing over which Ram it is that is being referred to, but the answer is both. So Ram is of the ideal king, and he appeared in this world for showing how to administer a society. When he was vanquished by politics due to palace intrigue, he did not protest, he just left. It's interesting that his father, Dasarath, died thereafter due to a broken heart. Dasarath was also the victim of these politics. So he died of a broken heart. But Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father, when Krishna left Vrindavan, he did not die. He just remained there with his broken heart. And the acharyas explain that's because he loved Krishna just a little bit more. So Maharaj, or Ram, defeated this horrific demon Ravana, and this took place many millions of years ago. This is an ancient pastime, which was subsequently celebrated by a great poet, Valmiki. So the whole story of Lord Ram is enshrined in this great work of world literature called the Ramayana, which has been widely popular throughout India and also in Eastern Asia. In Indonesia, Bali, places you'll see the various art, crafts and arts that are created around the pastimes of Ram. So that at one time, all throughout Eastern Asia, this Vedic culture was prominent, also with the Dhanvantari pastime. So Ram is beloved to everybody. He is in India, sometimes the political parties will invoke him because he's the ideal ruler. They call their political party the Ram Raj party, right? The party of Ram. In fact, recently, you may have heard there was a tremendous, over the last 30 years, there's been this tremendous tension in India between the Muslims and the Hindus over the birthplace of Lord Ram in Ayodhya. So at that place, there had been a historic temple that had been established for millennia. And when the Islamic invasion took place, it was torn down. So this created great resentment amongst the Hindus for generations. The Muslims built a mosque on the spot, which was their practice. And when the politics shifted in India from a kind of more secular to a more Hindu-oriented government in the last couple of decades, the government allowed the mosque to be torn down and the new temple to be built on that site, which was a very hot issue. But it is done and was opened this year. And the devotees in India are very enthusiastic about it, although we're not supposed to take part in politics. So there's so much to say about Lord Ram. I'm not going to go into the pastime and all the invocation, all of the description. as of all of Krishna's incarnations, he had two purposes. What are those two purposes? Why does Krishna come? Remember in my last class we talked about this. What? Yeah, anyone who knows the verse, let's say it together. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajam yaham. Whenever and wherever there's decline in religion and a rise in irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So in this case, Ravana, this terrible personality, had kidnapped the wife of Ram, and along with creating all kinds of other havoc. And so Ram destroyed him. So in this way, he saved Sita and he destroyed Ravana. That is the application of that verse in Ram Lila. In the case of Parasaram, Parasaram is the incarnation of the Lord as the great. He's a Brahmin, son of a Brahmin, but he became a warrior for the sake of removing the ill-motivated political class of the time. Briefly, he was the son of a Brahmin named Jamadagni, and some Kshatriyas wanted to steal the cow from his father and ultimately killed him. And so Parasaram was very upset about all this and decided he would remove all of the warriors, all of the administrators of the earth, because they were too corrupt. So he was being an empowered incarnation of the Lord. He was able to defeat them all single-handedly with his chopper, his axe. So this is a very ferocious incarnation of righteous anger. So historically, he drove all of the rulers out of India who ended up settling in other parts of the world. So the Kshatriyas went off to Egypt and to Greece and to these other places and reestablished themselves. They could not stay in Bharat, or at least in that part of the world. So this is Parasaram. He and Ram are both amongst the Das avatars, the 10 prominent incarnations who are celebrated by the famous poet Jayadev Goswami. You know, we sing each morning, Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Madhuta Shrengam Dalita Haranyakashipu Tanubringam. This is from Jayadev Goswami's Das Avatar Stotra, the prayers to the 10 incarnations. So Shringadev is listed, Lord Ram is listed, and also Parasaram is listed. So these are very prominent avatars. One who is not listed, though, is Dhanvantari, so we're going to talk about him in more detail this morning. So can we go to verse 21? Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir.
Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir.
Namna Nrinam Puruvrajam Brucha Ashuhanti.
Namna Nrinam Puruvrajam Brucha Ashuhanti.
Yagyecha Bhagam Amrita Yuravai Varundha.
Yagyecha Bhagam Amrita Yuravai Varundha.
Ayushya Vedam Anushasya Vitirya Loke.
Ayushya Vedam Anushasya Vitirya Loke.
Anyone like to try?
Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir.
Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir. Nam Rinam Pururujam Ruja Ashuhanti. Yagyecha Bhagam Amritayu Avavarudana. Ayushya Vedam Anushasya Vitirya Loke.
Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir.
Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayameva Kirtir.
Namnam Purujam Bruja Ashuhanti.
Nam nam rinam pururujam ruja ashuhanti.
Yecha bhagam amritayuravavarundha.
Yagye chabagam amrita yurava varunanka.
Ayushya manushastyavatiri loke.
Ayushya veda manushasya vitirya loke. Sit. Go ahead. Go ahead. Danvantarishta Bhagavan Swayam Eva Kirtir. Nam Nam Rinam Purujam Rija Ashuhanti. Yagye Chabagam Amrita Yurava Varunta. Yayushya Vedam Anushasya Vitirya Loke. Okay. Synonyms together, please. Danvantari, the incarnation of God named Danvantari, Cha, and Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Swayam Eva, personally himself, Kirti, fame personified, Namna, by the name, Nrinam Purujam, of the disease living entities, Ruja, diseases, Ashu, very soon, Tanti, cures, Yagye, in the sacrifice, Cha, also, Bhagam, share, Amrita, nectar, Ayu, duration of life, Ava, from, Avarunte, obtains, Ayushya, of duration of life, Vedam, knowledge, Anushasti, directs, Avatirya, incarnating, Loke, in the universe. And translation together, please. The Lord, in his incarnation of Dhanvantari, very quickly cures the diseases of the ever-diseased living entities simply by his fame personified. And only because of him do demigods achieve long lives. Thus, the personality of Godhead becomes ever glorified. He also exacted a share from the sacrifices, and it is he only, the medical science of the knowledge of medicine in the universe. Purport. Who would like to read the short purport here? Anyone? Please.
As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, everything emanates from the ultimate source of the personality of Godhead. It is therefore understood in this verse that medical science or knowledge in medicine was also inaugurated by the personality of Godhead in his incarnation Dhanvantari, and thus the knowledge is recorded in the Vedas. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and thus knowledge in medical science is also there for the perfect cure of the diseases of the living entity. The embodied living entity is diseased by the very construction of his body. The body is the symbol of diseases. The disease may differ from one variety to another, but disease must be there just as there is birth and death for everyone. So by the grace of the personality of Godhead, not only are diseases of the body and mind cured, but also the soul is relieved of the constant repetition of birth and death. The name of the Lord is also called Bhavasadhi, or the source of curing the disease of material existence.
The name of the Lord is also called Bhavasadhi. Does anyone know where that is from? It's in the Jeev Jago, isn't it? The medicine. Very good. Thank you. This is beautiful incarnation of the Lord, Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari means, Dhanvan refers to like a forest, a dangerous place, and Tari means one who delivers, one who takes one through the dangerous forest of the material world, Dhanvantari. So the history of Dhanvantari is very interesting because, again, this is an ancient pastime which appears in the walls of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, which is the largest religious structure on Earth. And on these walls there are bas relief pastimes of this, or carvings of this pastime that I'm going to explain to you now. So it is said in the earlier ages, the Satya Yuga, there were no demons on the earth. There were demons on other planets. In the next age, Treta Yuga, there were demons on the earth. In the next age, Dwapara Yuga, there were demons in the family. And in Kali Yuga, the present age, there are demons within every person. As Chief Sitting Bull said, I have two dogs in my mind, a good one and a bad one. And which is the strongest? It depends on which one I feed. So the two sides of our lives, the divine and demoniac, are present, and up to us to choose which way to go. So Dhanvantari appeared because these two demons, these two classes rather of people, the Suras and Asuras, the divine and the demoniac, were fighting. In fact, from the very beginning of creation in the universe, these two parties are at war. And they're first cousins. The demons are the sons of Diti, and the devotees, or the demigods, I should say, the demigods are the sons of Aditi, who are sisters. And they're both married to Kashyapa. So very close family relationship. Of course, we can see that if you don't have someone to fight with in your family, who do you fight with? So the Suras and Asuras, the demigods and the demons, are always fighting it. Sometimes one is prominent, sometimes the other is prominent. And whenever the demons become prominent, the demigods, the Suras, always go to Vishnu. Please help. So they were not thinking so much about Vishnu when they were enjoying their luxurious lives in the heavenly planets. But when there's trouble, they go to Vishnu. So that's their qualification. And so in this particular time, the demons were very strong. The demigods were weakened. And so they went to Vishnu, and Vishnu said, I'll help you deal with this situation. So he advised them. They went to the demons and said, let's form a truce. Let's form a truce, and together, with our combined strength, we can churn the great ocean of milk on which Vishnu resides. And from this churning, we will get the nectar of immortality, Amrita, which we can then share. And so the demons thought, okay, this is a good proposition. We'll get these suckers to help us churn the ocean, and then when the Amrita is produced, we'll take it because we're stronger than they were. This was their intention from the very beginning. And so they began the process to churn this huge ocean. And to do that, they needed very large tools. They needed a huge mountain to use as a churning rod. So we're not familiar with these things so much in modern society, but in India, very traditionally, before refrigerators existed, they would take milk from the cows, first step, then boil the milk, and then turn it into yogurt, because yogurt can keep without refrigeration. So then they would take the yogurt and churn it. And from the churned yogurt would come the butter. Then the butter would be refined into ghee, which is also shelf stable, can be kept without refrigeration. And what was left, the buttermilk, then everyone would drink. So in this way, the milk was utilized in all these different ways. So churning was very familiar in every household. Every household would have a cow. They would churn the yogurt, produce butter, make ghee, and that way it lived very nicely. So the churning rod had to be very large for this huge ocean of milk. So the largest mountain in the universe was selected, Mandara Mountain. And the demons and demigods together could manage to lift it, but they couldn't really carry it very well. Have you ever lifted something? You can lift it, but you can't. Just holding it up is all you can do. That was what it was like for all of them. So they're moving it slowly, slowly, slowly. Then they lost their balance. The mountain fell on them and crushed them all. And that was the end of the pastime. No, Vishnu had to come again. All right. He restored their lives, and then he picked up the mountain and placed it on the back of his bird carrier, Garuda. And Garuda very easily took it to the ocean of milk. To churn this huge rod, they enlisted the help of Vasuki, the king of serpents, this enormous snake. And the demons, of course, are always envious of the demigods. And the demigods have Lord Vishnu on their side, so they're always a little ahead of the game. So Lord Vishnu said to the demigods, take the head and let the demons have the tail. And so the demigods said, okay, we want to hold the head. And the demigods said, we want to hold the head. And the demons immediately protested, no, we want the head. And the demigod said, all right, you can have it. So they took the dangerous end, the business end of the snake, and the demigods got the tail. So they were working very hard to churn with all their might, churning, but the mountain was so heavy it was sinking. And so the Lord incarnated as Kurma, a tortoise, who submerged and then lifted the mountain on his back so it could be held while the churning was going on. It's also described, I believe Jayadev Goswami describes it, he had a bit of an itch on his back. And so he was finding this very satisfying. So Kurma is holding, and the demons and demigods are churning. But then, what's the first thing that is produced by their churning? Poison, yes. What is it? Hala what? Hala, yes. Yes, there was this terrible, deadly poison that was spread all over the universe, and it threatened to annihilate everything. So the demigods then panicked and asked Vishnu what to do. Vishnu said, you have to go see Lord Shiva. So they all went together, the demigods and Vishnu went together to see Shiva, to ask him to please help with the situation. So the devotees of Shiva will point at this section of Srimad Bhagavatam and say, just see, Vishnu himself is going to pray to Shiva. Okay. And this is their like gotcha. But in fact, what is really going on is that Vishnu is orchestrating everything in this whole pastime. And so he's going along, and he's bringing them to Shiva very respectfully, offering his respects. And then the demigods begin this long series of prayers to Lord Shiva. Very powerful prayers like, oh, you're the source of creation, and you alone can give us liberation. And again, the Shaivites are very happy to see. But what is explained is that let's say an ambassador from a country comes to the other country. So that ambassador is given all kinds of respect and even gifts. But by law, the ambassador who receives these gifts cannot keep them personally. They can keep a certain small amount. But the gifts the ambassador receives are the property of the country that the ambassador represents. So in the same way, all these prayers and of appreciation for Shiva are actually the property of Vishnu, because Vishnu is the source of Shiva. So Shiva agrees after checking with his wife. He receives all these prayers, and then he goes to his wife, Mavni, and says, can I do this? Or I'm planning to do this, just want to let you know. She gave her blessings. And then he proceeded to consolidate all of this poison into enough to fit into the palm of his hand, which he just drank. He spilled a few drops, which became scorpions and rattlesnakes and toxic plants. But he drank it all, and his neck turned slightly blue as a result. So this is differentiating Vishnu and Shiva. Shiva is, like the demigod said, he is the controller or the proprietor of the material world. But although Krishna is never affected, he was slightly affected by taking the poison of this material world. His throat turned blue. So Vishnu orchestrated all of this. The poison was removed. This is analogous and important for us to understand when we take up Krishna consciousness. We're like churning the ocean of our mind. And with every mantra, we're churning Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And what comes out of the churning, the first thing that comes out is all the poison. Anartha nivritti, all the bad habits, all the material attachments, all the false ego, all of the unwanted things first come up. Srila Prabhupada gave the example, when you are cleaning a room that has not been cleaned in a long time, first thing is all the dust arises, first thing. So that's part of the process of purification. First thing, all the poison came out. And Lord Shiva took it. After that, a number of auspicious personalities and appearances came from the ocean. There were the jewels, the Kaustuba Mani, the beautiful jewel, which Vishnu said, I would like to wear this, and he kept it on his chest. Airavata, the elephant, came, and Indra said, I would like to have this as my mount. Uchchaishrava, a horse, came, and Bali Maharaj claimed that. He was one of the leaders of the demons. So they were sharing the various things that were coming, but Vishnu kept reminding the demigods, keep your eyes on the prize. You're here to get that Amrita. You're here to get that nectar of immortality. So don't get distracted by all these other things. Then this great personality came from the churning of the ocean of milk. Who was that personality? Anyone know? Huh? Not a little later for her, but it was a lady. He's coming, but before Dhanvantari comes this great feminine personality. Yes, Lakshmi. Lakshmi came from the ocean of milk. This is why she is described in the Jagannath Astakam. Lakshmi, who was born of the ocean of nectar. So she comes, a maiden, and the goddess of fortune herself. Like, everybody's mad after money, you know. Money is the honey in this world. It's like in the psychology department at one college, one of the students asked his teacher, I'm concerned that what we're learning here is not true. And the teacher very candidly said, where in the contract does it say it's true? I'm teaching you what you need to know to earn a living in this field. People study psychology, they call it mycology, because they want to understand themselves. But the purpose of it is making money. The purpose of most education is making money. And so everybody's after Lakshmi. She got all kinds of proposals for marriage, and she was being very selective. Who will I take? Who will I take? Then she said, I could only take somebody like Vishnu. So she accepted Vishnu as her husband. And so she is eternally with him and casting favor or withdrawing it on everybody else. So in this pastime, Lord Vishnu gets the Kaustuba gem, he gets Lakshmi, and this finally sets the stage for the appearance of Dhanvantari. So Dhanvantari is the purveyor, the carrier of this Amrita that was the goal in the first place. So he appears all at once, this very strong, beautiful personality. He's wearing a yellow silk dhoti. He has the auspicious 3 lines on his neck, like a conch shell. Very strong, very beautiful. And in his arms, he's carrying this jug of nectar. So the connection between Ram and Dhanvantari are that they're both famous, Prabhupada said. They both are so well known. Dhanvantari is well known because all of us are concerned about our health. So he represents Ayurveda, or the science of health from the Vedic tradition. I had the opportunity to visit an Ayurvedic clinic in Kerala, South India. And everywhere, every room, there's pictures of Dhanvantari. It's a kind of a Christian area, so they on the altar they had Dhanvantari and Jesus.
Wow.
In fact, every room is like that, just so everybody's covered. So now this picture of Dhanvantari was very interesting because he's holding in his hands the very cordial items of Vishnu, the lotus flower and the conch shell. I believe he's holding the jug, but in one hand he's holding a leech. Every picture, you see, it was holding a leech. You know what a leech is? A little black thing that sucks blood, yeah. And I thought that's interesting. If you're familiar with Ayurvedic medicine, leeches are used. When I was growing up, perhaps you also have heard this is like some primitive, brutal, pseudo-scientific form of medicine from the Middle Ages when people were ignorant, right? That's pretty much the rap on the poor leech. And yet Dhanvantari is holding a leech. So what I learned is that leeches are blessed with a saliva that thins blood. This is how they feed. They thin blood, and then they take blood from their host for 20 or 30 minutes and then fall off. That's how they eat. And so they have this capacity to thin the blood to make it more available, digestible for them while they're feeding. They also have a saliva, which is an anesthetic. It numbs the flesh of the host. So when they latch on, there's no pain, just a little tug. And then they proceed to ingest blood and let it pass through them and take their nourishment from it and thin it at the same time. So it has the effect on the host of reducing inflammation. In various ways, it purifies the blood. It's good for the skin. It's good for various ailments. So Ayurvedic physicians will use the leeches for these purposes. I was stunned once. The eco village in Bombay, north of Bombay, this beautiful project from the devotees in Chopati. It's a fantastic place. And they had an Ayurvedic clinic. I walked in just to check it out, and there's a big jar of leeches. So Dhanvantari knows all of the science of Ayurveda, of this traditional medicine. And before I forget, leeches are approved by the FDA. Yes, they are approved by the US government for certain medical procedures. Yeah. So I wanted to conclude by talking a little, just the rest of the story. What happened then? When he appears with this jug of nectar, the demons and the demigods are all very happy. Finally, all of our labor has produced this result. But the demons think, okay, great, now here's our chance. And they go to Dhanvantari and they just take the jug of nectar. Although he's so strong, they were able to come and just take it away from him. And thinking, we fooled these demigods. They helped us get it, now we've got the nectar. But, the demigods then all went to Vishnu, what do we do? Traditional response. And Vishnu said, don't worry, they will argue among themselves. And that's exactly what happens. Can you go to 8:38? That's exactly what happens. This is a famous verse. So the demons start arguing. Who's going to get the nectar? I want it first. No, I want it first. Let's see. A quarrel arose. Let's do the Sanskrit, actually. This is very interesting. Mita kaler abute sham tadarte tarshacheta sam aham purvam, not twam, iti prabhu. Aham purvam, I get it. Me first, not you. So yes, so this quarrel arose. They started fighting. And this sets the stage for Vishnu's next incarnation, Mohini Murti. So this is the pastime of Dhanvantari. So I wanted to just, Mohini Murti, by the way, is the way that the demigods get the nectar back, all by Vishnu's arrangement. So I want to conclude by talking a little about health and Ayurveda. You know, Srila Prabhupada was, I think he was quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the hierarchy of priorities for devotees. 4 priorities, 4 things. What is the first one? Second one? There's a delay in that answer. Okay. Third is?
Service.
And fourth?
Reading.
Reading. Good. Right. So these are the priorities for a devotee. First thing is health. Why health? Because if we're not healthy, we can't do anything. If we're sick, we can't come to the temple, we can't do our service, it's hard to chant. Prabhupada said if you chant your rounds, even when you're sick, that is pure devotion. So balancing our health and our other things is our goal in Krishna consciousness. One of my godbrothers, Radhanath Maharaj, spent his brahmachari years in New Vrindavan living very austerely. I mean, they would sleep 3 hours a night. They would sleep in the freezing winter in the attic of this little shack and worship the deities every day. This is before New Vrindavan built up. And just eat very austerely and everything super austere. And he said, what did I get from all my austerities? I got bad health. So it makes sense. It's important to keep our health balanced. In the Gita, in the chapter on yoga, chapter 6, Krishna says, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta chetasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yoga bhavati dukkha. The yukta, the word yukta means regular, temperate, moderate, one who is yukta in eating, sleeping, work, and recreation, can conquer all miseries of life by practicing the yoga system. So that the idea of health is that it's very easy if we're just moderate and appropriate in the amount of sleep we take and the amount of food we eat and the type of food we eat. We can stem disease by eating a proper diet. We can stem disease by getting a sufficient amount of rest. And the amount of rest one needs will differ from person to person. He says that one cannot be a yogi if he eats too much, eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. So what we're looking for in Krishna consciousness is sustainability, how we can live a whole life in bhakti and keep our health and keep our balance. And in spite of our best efforts, we will get diseases from time to time. So Ayurveda is there, Western medicine is there. Prabhupada said, take whatever works. Okay, we're not fanatic and say only the Ayurvedic way. We're not dismissive of that and say only the Western way. What is that? You can have leeches if you want. They're FDA approved. Just make sure they're FDA approved. My main point is this. I've seen sometimes devotees get a little too absorbed in their health to the point of my health is more important than my bhakti. And this is a natural propensity because when we're coming to the mode of goodness, one of the things that we experience is we give up the things that are unhealthy, our unhealthy habits, smoking and drinking and eating meat and eating nonsense foods of all kinds. We give those things up, that brings us to the mode of goodness, and then there's a natural sense that, well, this is how I've come this far, I might as well refine my diet even more, and it gets a little bit too much. So the idea is to strike a balance where we keep the bodily demands managed, under control, where they're not pressing us. That's what it means to make health the first priority. So we're neither pushing ourselves nor preoccupied with our bodies. We're just keeping them in place, like somebody's walking their dog. If the dog has behaved and at the end of the leash, then you can tolerate it. The dog's running around and barking, then it's a disturbance. So The idea is to keep the body peaceful. And then the mind can be also peaceful. And then it's very easy to put our hearts into serving Krishna. So that's my spiel. Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, Prabhuji.
I appreciate you bringing up this topic, especially as far as like what Srila Prabhupada recommended for health. So I read Your Ever Well Wisher, and it describes basically he had like 3 serious health issues, right? Like on the boat, Yamadula over here. But then he also had a heart attack, and he was being cared for by Kirtanananda. They bailed him out of a hospital at one point. But during that episode, it kind of just describes that he was really rejectful of any kind of Western treatment or doctors, and he was like his was like massage and Maha mantra.
Yeah.
So it, and I mean he got better with it, but it just seems like sometimes there's like a really high bar, transcendental, like standards that we really won't be able to cover. So is there a way we can try to navigate like that example?
It's important to understand that people have practically different bodies according to the different parts of the world in which they're raised. Okay. So what Srila Prabhupada experienced is not what we have experienced unless we are raised in India. And therefore we can follow the example and not imitate. He did what helped him get better. We can also do what helps us get better. And that's what he said very clearly, Eastern, Western, whatever works. Okay. Okay. Let's go.
You've touched briefly, thank you for the class, you've touched. Chandra, we say Ram, it refers to Ramachandra as well. I always thought that, well, Krishna came as Ramachandra and Balaram came as Lakshman. Could you speak more on that? Especially, how do we take Ram and now we're chanting a little bit more?
How do we take Ram when we're chanting? Well, Ram means the reservoir of pleasure. And so it refers to Krishna in himself as well. So the point is that we're approaching Krishna through Radharani, Hare Krishna. When Radharani, when we please Radharani, Krishna is pleased. And when we please Krishna, Radharani is pleased. Where there's balance in the mantra. Praying to Radha, we're praying to Krishna. So when we're chanting Ram, we can also understand whatever understanding of that name inspires us. Okay, if it's Ram, the King Ram, Lord Ram, then that's fine. If it's Balaram with his plow, Krishna's buddy, Krishna, who by the way is in charge of all the living entities in the material universe. He's Krishna's first expansion to deal with everybody who doesn't cut it to stay in the spiritual world. Krishna's with them, everyone in the spiritual world, and for everyone else, there's Ram. See, like Krishna's with the Pandavas, Balaram's with Duryodhana. Right? Yeah. So he's also very important in our meditation. So, but Prabhupada thought it was silly that devotees were arguing over which one it was. Yeah. So it's up to the individual. There's great variety. Okay. Yes, Prabhu. You add to that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One reflection and one question. I really appreciated the example you gave of the ambassador who accepts gifts not for himself but for his country. And I was just meditating that in this pastime of the churning of the ocean, in some ways, Lord Vishnu has been doing everything. He's the one who gives the idea to churn the ocean. He gives Garuda to pick up the mountain. He suggests Vasuki. He comes to save the mountain from falling down, and comes in the form of Kumavatar. So he's doing everything, and it feels like he's offering one of his most sincere devotees, Lord Shiva, the opportunity to also partake in the pastime and be glorified. So I found that very sweet that the Lord chooses to engage his pure devotees to further glorify them. Thank you for sharing that analogy. The question I had was actually with the translation of the verse. Prabhu, could you just pull that up?
That's 2:721.
So I actually did not understand the first half of the first sentence in the translation. It says that the Lord, in his incarnation of Dhanvantari, very quickly cures the diseases of the ever diseased simply by his fame personified.
Yes, yes, this is why he's worshipped, because the idea is just remembering him will cure disease. Just by his association, one can be cured by worshiping him, by his fame. This is why he's considered, like Ram, famed amongst all the incarnations. It's because everybody has health issues, as Prabhupada points out in the purport. Everyone has health issues. So therefore, everybody turns to Dhanvantari to pray. Please help. And just by remembering him, one can be cured of diseases. This is the idea.
The question I had was, is it can it also be subtly taken that the cause of the diseases of the diseased living entities is their desire for personal fame?
Yes, I see your point. Right, the independence, thinking ourselves the doer, thinking ourselves capable of existing in this world without God. That is the original disease of the soul. Yeah, and that's a very good point. Thinking of the Lord, because Dhanvantari is also Vishnu. He's an amsa of an amsa, part of a part of Vishnu. But he has a very specific function. But yes, that is a good point. That, in other words, when we get sick, we often reach out to God and pray, right? This is the standard procedure. Like when the Gemini capsule went up, or was it Apollo, whatever, it was Gemini 13, I think, but it was going to land on the moon, but then they had the explosion, and then they had to come back. So the President Nixon went on the air and said, "All Americans, please pray for the astronauts." Prabhupada's comment was, "They did not consult God before sending the rocket ship." So this is the point, that when we get sick, we turn to God. Sometimes if it's serious illness or someone dies, people question, how could God do this? They maybe lose their faith in God. So it's very important to have the context of understanding. We're in this world where we get disease because we forgot God. Now we're trying to cure that. That doesn't mean that the body will be freed of disease. We will also go through. A guest once asked Srila Prabhupada, "Will chanting Hare Krishna cure cancer?" Prabhupada said, "Yes. Chant Hare Krishna and you'll never get cancer again." I think we're a little over time here, so sorry I didn't leave enough time for discussion. Anything else? Real quick? Okay.
Thank you so much for this class. I really enjoyed the storytelling around this one. It's a fun story with lots of deep meaning. I love that aspect of Krishna consciousness. So my question is, you talked about how Krishna consciousness is meant to be this sustainable, like this sustainable move. And something that was coming up for me before Krishna consciousness was I was really into farming, and this idea of regenerative agriculture is starting to rise. So it's the idea that it's like one step beyond sustainable. So sustainable is where you're kind of like keeping the status quo, but regenerative is where from like a singular input, you actually get multiple outputs. And so I was just curious, like, is there any, like, if I'm thinking about Krishna consciousness in that framework, am I getting into like the mystic city aspects of things, or like, is there a way to make Krishna consciousness more of a regenerative, where it's like by putting my time, effort, and energy into Krishna, it actually gives back more than what I'm putting in?
Oh, definitely. definitely. It's a nice analogy. If we take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards us. What could be more regenerative? every patram pushpam palam toyam. If just offer me a little simple thing, I will accept it. He's very happy. He's easily pleased by bhakti. So this regenerative farming means like being good to the earth. It's just like a mode of goodness, right? Yes, instead of exploiting. It's very much like that in our relationship with God. We tend to turn to God when we want something. We get it, we say thanks a lot, see you later. The relationship should be regenerative. We give to Krishna, we give service, we chant his name, we give our devotion, and then Krishna fills us with all kinds of amazing feelings and realizations, which make us in turn want to give more to Krishna. And when we give more to Krishna, then Krishna wants to give more to us. So this reciprocation goes on. Regeneratively. Thank you. The adverb. That's how it goes on. Nitya yukta upasate. So what could be more regenerative than that relationship? All right, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Bodies full of ignorance, fraught with lust in every sense, throw us in the sea of death and birth. Of the senses, lusty tongues rarely can be overcome, while the soul is struggling on this earth. Krishna is so merciful, he helps us regain control, leaving remnants after he has done. Let us take what he has left, calling loudly, feeling blessed. Radha Krishna Chaitanya Nindai. Jai Mai Jai Nitai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Mahaprasad ki jai.